Welcome to the Unpacking It live podcast presented by Medishare. I'm Bryce Johnson. For the next hour, we will unpack sports, faith, and life with the Unpacking It community of sports fans. Be sure to subscribe to this show on YouTube. Like us on Facebook, find us on Twitter and Instagram. Just search Unpacking It. And it's so great to be with you on this Tuesday. Normally, we do this show Mondays at 2-ish Eastern. Today, I have escaped the snowbound home that I live in, and we are good to go. So we got some snow in Charlotte, and I live just a little outside of Charlotte and actually got hit a little bit more even than kind of the city of Charlotte. And so had a nice snow day yesterday, but glad to be back in the office today and to do this show following a wild weekend in the NFL. And we want to talk about those games. We want to talk about now the fresh matchups that we'll get starting this weekend and all the fallout from a lot of big wins, some tight losses for some key teams that are reeling this week and looking around, figuring out, okay, who do we blame? And so today, during the Unpack This segment, we will discuss who do we blame and how it relates to our own lives, our life of faith, and of course, from a sports perspective as well. So we'll get to that in just a little bit. We'll also do Tap Drill with Henry. Henry's with us today, and Luke is here as well. Let's say hello to Luke. How are you? How you feeling? We'll talk Cowboys. We'll go heavy into the Cowboys, your team, in just a little bit. But I was thinking about how you're doing. How are you holding up?
Well, I'm still mourning. Certainly still mourning. But
how many playoff wins
I have no
you
words.
seen?
I just have no words.
In your life, how many playoff wins?
I was looking up. Cowboys have 3 playoff wins, 3 or 4 since 1999. I was born in 97, but it has been. I hear about the glory days of Cowboys football. I hear about it. I have faith that it happened, but my goodness, have I not even come close to experiencing that? Oh
no, well, I saw one stat. My boy Jake Delhomme has more playoff wins than the Dallas Cowboys franchise. So shout out to Jake. Way to go.
I think some people are tired of me saying Mavs 2011, but if you just if you take a second and just analyze someone who was born in 1997, Dallas sports, you will realize, 2011, Mavs winning it all.
Hang on.
That's the only thing he's received as a Dallas sports fan. So,
oh man, well, we're going to talk about the Cowboys and yesterday, of course, right after the game, everybody's talking about the final play. I want us to, now it's Tuesday, so we'll move it a little bit further down the line. But I do want to talk about this topic of blaming, and this happens whether it's the Cowboys or any team following a loss, especially in the playoffs when there are high expectations. And so I think there's a lot there. So we'll get to that in just a little bit. I do want to thank our presenting sponsor, Medishare. We actually did a podcast with them last week, and so you can find that on Apple Podcasts, Mark and Marty, and talked about our partnership with them, and it's just been awesome. And really, we just want to help families. Medishare has helped my family. It's an affordable and effective way to pay for healthcare, and so we want to continue to communicate that to you as you look at different options for your own healthcare. And so Medishare, an innovative healthcare solution for Christians looking to save money without sacrificing on quality. And my wife and I, we have been members for over 5 years, and so thankful that they take care of us. So check them out. You can text the word unpack to the number 201-201. So text the word unpack to 201-201. You'll get a link, and then you'll be able to find out some more information to figure out if it's the right fit for your family. All right, let's begin today with I'm convinced. And I want to go all the way back to Saturday night because I do not want this team or this fan base to get lost in the shuffle. And I'm convinced that a franchise like the Cincinnati Bengals, they don't need a good quarterback. They don't need a great quarterback. They need a franchise, once in a lifetime type of quarterback. And as of today, it appears that the Cincinnati Bengals have that in Joe Burrow. Because when you look across sports, there are certain franchises that are just historically, they have a tough time getting over the hump. They're not expected to win championships. They're not expected to win Super Bowls. And so specifically in the NFL, it's great to have a good coach. They had Marvin Lewis, who I think is a good coach. He did a nice job there. They had good quarterbacks, Carson Palmer, Andy Dalton, solid quarterbacks. Carson Palmer was the number 1 pick, had a nice career. But they never got over the hump. They never won a playoff game. So in over 30 years, they finally win a playoff game. And it's not because of Zach Taylor. It's because of Joe Burrow. It's not because of Joe Mixon. It's not because of Jamar Chase, even though Jamar Chase is incredible. It is Joe Burrow. I was not a fan of Joe Burrow. I was hesitant, thinking, wait, one good year in LSU, is that really going to translate? He is on the path. Now, he still has a long ways to go. But we see this, a team like Milwaukee. They got Giannis. That's not just a good player, not a great player. That's a franchise-altering player. He goes way beyond having Ray Allen or Glenn Robinson. They weren't delivering a championship in Milwaukee. And Detroit, Matthew Stafford, he looked good last night, right, in L.A. with the Rams.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the Rams aren't a dysfunctional franchise like the Detroit Lions have been, or a losing-type franchise. So Detroit, they're still looking. They found a nice, good, solid quarterback in Matthew Stafford. It wasn't enough. So I'm convinced the Bengals, they could have, it's looking that way, that they found it in Joe Burrow, and it's a game changer for them and for that fan base. So shout out to them. That's what I'm convinced of today. What do you think?
I was thinking today, the front office certainly in Cincinnati deserves some credit. I mean, it's been, they've put together a good Cincinnati team, but also you luck into what looks like a generational player. That's just one of those things. Hey, consider it good luck. Now let's take advantage of it. Joe Burrow is legit. Now, I would argue that he's probably going to win Comeback Player of the Year. Well deserving. Torn ACL. I don't think he's as clear as a front runner as some people say, because I think Dak, what he came back from, is unbelievable as well. But Joe Burrow, I mean, that Cincinnati offense is absurd. Absolutely absurd. So as a football fan, watching them win, I'm a big Derek Carr guy. I love Derek Carr. It was disappointing to see him lose his first time ever to play in the playoffs, because the last time the Raiders were in the playoffs, he was hurt, and it was the EJ Manuel show. Disappointing. So I was disappointed to see him lose, but as the sports fan in me, how great it was to see. I think I've had it hard. A Bengals fan, 31 years since a single playoff win. I mean, how can you not be unbelievably excited for them? And that is so cool to see how they packed the house. That was just awesome.
Yes, that was a big deal. And of course, the joke going around on social media that Bengals fans have never texted, "We won a playoff game," because texting wasn't around back then. So that's a very funny perspective on that. But as I really started thinking about it, I was like, franchises like Jacksonville, do they have that in Trevor Lawrence? Because it takes so much more than just a really good or even great quarterback. It has to go to the absolute next level when you're talking about certain franchises. I would put the Jets in that category. Mark Sanchez wasn't enough. He wasn't going to get them over the hump. And the Patriots are kind of an interesting team because it really was Tom Brady. Now, they had some success before that, but even when I was young, the Patriots still weren't on that level. Of course, they are now. And so you just think about teams like that. So for instance, the Packers or the Steelers or even the Cowboys, they don't need a franchise altering quarterback. They just need someone that's really good and really consistent. That's why the Steelers won with Big Ben. Now, Rodgers may be that player, and he could have gone to Detroit and maybe turned him around. Possibly. We'll never know that. But to step into Green Bay where Brett Favre hands it off to you, I mean, come on. And I think Peyton Manning was that in Indy, because Indy was not a good franchise. And he turned them around, then handed it off to Andrew Luck, and then they squandered the Andrew Luck career by not giving him an offensive line. But anyway, that's what I've been thinking about. That was my big takeaway from from the weekend.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's probably too soon to tell. I think Trevor Lawrence is the only reason Jacksonville is an attractive spot. And we'll get into head coaching later in the show, but I'll tease it now. I think the only reason Jacksonville has attractiveness for a head coach to take that job is because of Trevor Lawrence. If you think Trevor Lawrence is a generational talent, it is worth taking the risk to go there, because it's a risky job. A lot of people have failed there. But if you have a quarterback that you think this dude is legit, it seems to be worth it, because now we've talked about before, many quarterbacks get buried and by going to a bad team, and they're never able to actually shine. But there's a lot of quarterbacks, even going to bad teams, you see their talent, and the front office says, we've got to do our best to give this guy a chance. So,
and I would say, along those lines, I would say a guy that ends up getting buried, like Derek Carr or David Carr in Houston. He wasn't that type of player. Now, he couldn't overcome it, and so we kind of blame the Texans for that. But like Deshaun Watson, I actually think is that type of franchise-altering player. Now, he blew it with his offseason, whatever, off the field stuff, whatever's going on there, and then also demanding a trade. But think about that. Like, he was able to turn that franchise in a big way too.
Yeah.
So anyway, I could talk about this all day, but it's just kind of an interesting thing where there's just this next level that's required for some of these franchises to finally rise from kind of the ashes, or even the Bengals. Like, they had some competitive years, but it still was never enough. And now Burrow gives them hope that it's possible.
True.
So what are you convinced of, Luke?
So last thing, we'll get into this later in the show, because I have some more opinions about some of these franchises. But what I'm convinced of today is expanding the NFL playoffs to 14 teams, an absolute no-brainer. It is phenomenal. It is fantastic. I'm convinced of that. Now, I understand the arguments from the other side. Oh, well, is it just going to be blowout games? 7 seeds are 0-4 in the last 2 years by a combined margin of 13 points if they're not competitive. Let me offer you this. One, I obviously think a 7 seed is going to beat a 2 seed eventually. It's going to happen. It's not like a 16 playing a 1 in March Madness. There's enough parity in the NFL for if you make the playoffs, you can beat any team in the league. But I think the most important benefit from expanding the playoffs is the beautiful chaos we get the last 3 weeks of the regular season. Think of how meaningful each game was the last 3 weeks. Now, of course, when there's only 16 games prior to the expansion prior to the expansion of the playoffs, games are still meaningful because there's few games in the NFL season. But the NFL has typically had the fewest teams in the postseason, but now with an expansion, think of the chaos we get the last few regular season games. Now, I'm anti-tie, but besides the point, some of these games, the playoff bracket looks different each week, and there's so much on the line for these games at the end of the season, similar to the NBA play-in tournament. There's more incentive to really go for the playoffs because it's realistic shot for more teams. And in addition, there's been a handful of teams that have fired their coach after missing the playoffs, and they would have been a 7th seed in the expansion. There's been a handful of 8-8, 9-7 teams, even 10-6, that have gone away from their coaches because they didn't make the playoffs, but in the expansion, they would have made the playoffs. I think of Jim Caldwell in Detroit. Imagine if he was still in Detroit. Who knows? But what we get at the end of the regular season, I think, is so worth the expansion, because think of all we've talked about the last few weeks. The end of the regular season in the NFL, fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So I'm convinced the expansion was phenomenal.
All right. So I love the NFL. And to go along your lines of putting an emphasis on the final few weeks of the season, I'm convinced regular season NFL football is better than playoff football.
Interesting.
Wow. The championship weekend is strong. The NFC AFC championship game where the Super Bowl is on the line. And of course, the Super Bowl is always awesome. But the adrenaline rush that I get on Sunday from 1 to 4 watching. I have 3 TVs, the Red Zone on my main channel, Fox and CBS when the Panthers are on, and then we get a bonus game. There's nothing more exciting. I have to say, when I'm watching the Bucks and the Eagles get blown out, or the Bucks blow out the Eagles, that's hard to watch. And then my other option to watch that on Sunday, I was watching Cowboys 49ers from 1994 or 5. Troy Aikman. I was watching Troy Aikman on the NFL Network. So that's a little bit of a strong take. As I still like, it's not that I don't like the playoffs. They're great, but I still think, especially the last few weeks of the season, to what you're talking about, the intensity and every game.
Yeah.
I mean, all those games mattered, and it was nuts. It was game after game, play after play. It's a lot of fun. So great take. However, Henry, I think, disagrees with you. So I'm gonna give Henry a chance to tell us what he's convinced of in regards to the extra team that we now have in the playoffs. So one team gets a bye, and now we have 7 teams in each conference. So, all right, Henry, what are you convinced of? Uh-oh, he's muted.
I'm muted. Hold on. Wait a minute.
Okay,
there we go. I'm actually going to take the opposite approach. I say that the playoff expansion actually kind of dilutes the playoffs, because let's take the 2 teams that were the 7th seeds. We're going to take the Philadelphia Eagles and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Just so happens they're both from Pennsylvania. With the Pittsburgh Steelers, you saw Big Ben. You saw all the emotion that Big Ben had after the win. I'm not saying that the win wasn't important, but it was important to him that he got to have a win in his, what we all thought at the moment was his last game. You saw all of the emotion. You saw the tears that were coming out of his eyes. He was going to walk off on his own, walk off with the win, walk off on top with all the adulates, with all of the flowers being given to him.
All the pomp and circumstance.
And there you see, Bryce. There you go. There you go. All of the pomp and circumstance.
Gosh.
And then he walks into the next week and gets blown out.
But he knew it was coming. He knew it was coming. He put it in. He put it out there in the universe. He knew it was coming.
Can we get a poll from his teammates on what they thought of those comments?
That's good.
Because he verbatim said, "We do not have a chance.
We're gonna get blown out. Like it's gonna get ugly. We have no shot."
I guarantee there's people in that locker room that felt so disrespected. Like, if you are an NFL team and make the playoffs, I think you have a legit chance.
You know, I think it's something unique in Pittsburgh because, like, they're such a great franchise. It's Super Bowl or bust for them, really. And especially as a former Super Bowl winner with Ben Roethlisberger. And I think everybody knew this wasn't a Super Bowl caliber team. And he wasn't a Super Bowl caliber quarterback at this point in his career. And I think it was just, like, so obvious that there was no pretending. So I don't know. I don't know how that translates, or what. That would just be my gut feeling on that. So Henry's a little hesitant about the extra teams.
And then you go over to the other side, to the Philadelphia Eagles, and then you have a team who's not even sure about their quarterback in Jalen Hurts. As confident as he is, he's like, "Oh, I've played in big games. I've played in the national championship." Yeah, you did it. Then you got subbed out for Tua. Okay. You got subbed out for Tua in the national championship game. And then playing the college national championship, as big as that is nothing compared to playing in an NFL playoff game. And the Philadelphia Eagles, and Jalen Hurts included, just didn't really belong there. And now after that playoff, there's even question about him even being the starting quarterback on Philly. So as much as I like all of the drama, and again, like I said last week, give me the NFL over any type of reality show. But when you got teams that really shouldn't be in there, and they know that they shouldn't be there, a la Ben Roethlisberger, who already sounded like he had his bags packed for Cancun, that just kind of dilutes the playoffs, and it kind of dilutes the whole process. So the playoff expansion, at least on the NFL level, I wasn't really a big fan of.
Okay, no, I think it's fair, and I think we did see a lot of blowouts. But think about it, Arizona, they were a great team this year. Especially early on in the year, they were the best team in the league. And so for them to get blown out last night, that was a shock versus they didn't deserve to be there necessarily. And I would have said a team like the Raiders, they had no business being in the playoffs, yet they gave us maybe the best game of the weekend outside of Dallas, of course. But
I think
winning,
one more thing is we know the reason they expanded. It's because money. You make more money. The NFL controlled the entire weekend. Game Saturday, Sunday, Monday night, the super wild card weekend. As a fan, I mean, give me some of that. That's incredible. Yes. And for them, I mean, we talked about last week, they had 91 or 95 of the top 100 telecasts in general last year were NFL football games. It's a no-brainer. So they were going to expand. I'm shocked they didn't do it sooner. But as a sports fan, if you have an open weekend, it's a fantastic weekend of football.
It was great. And to have Monday Night Football last night was fun. And even though the game, I think we have to look at this over a 5-year period versus just the first year. So I understand Henry's disappointment or frustration, but I do lean toward, man, the final 3 weeks end up being way better, which is awesome. And then it also sets up this year in particular, we have 6 Super Bowl contenders. Now, I think the Bengals still have some room to grow, right? They're still early in this transition to becoming Super Bowl contenders. Yeah. We saw that happen with a number of these teams that are now in the mix. And then I would say the 49ers are probably a little bit of a stretch to win a Super Bowl, but I guess you could even put them in there too. But the other teams, Bucks, Packers, Bills, Chiefs, without a doubt.
Yeah.
And then who am I missing? The Rams, no question, after how well they played. And then the Titans are the number 1 seed in the AFC. We always forget about the Titans. They're going to be there. They're going to win the whole thing, aren't they? And so that sets us up for a really good divisional round.
True.
And I keep having conversations with people. Hey, who do you think is going to win the Super Bowl? It's so wide open, and that's really, really exciting. So I think from here on out, we should see some really great matchups, more competitive games than blowouts. There's always the surprise blowout. But who would have thought Bill Belichick would show up Saturday night and get blown out like that in Buffalo? That will be the Medishare moment of the week in just a little bit. But all right, good stuff from you guys. Henry is working the chat behind the scenes. So those of you watching on Facebook or YouTube or LinkedIn or Twitter, leave your comments and you'll hear from Henry on the chat there, and he'll post some of the great ones here on the actual video feed. And thanks to all of our podcast listeners that listen later. And you can always reach out to me. Send me an email, Bryce@unpackingit.com, with your thoughts on the show. And so each week we jump into Unpack This, which is our segment that takes sports stories, relates them to the Bible, relates them to our own lives, and have a kind of a spiritual discussion, a faith-based discussion on something going on in sports. And unfortunately for Luke, we've got to talk about his Cowboys, but we'll expand it even just to a general sense. But I'm watching TV yesterday, so I was snowed in last couple days. It was nice to get out of the house today.
The pictures of little Maddie on Facebook were amazing. Her with the gloves, the huge gloves. Amazing.
So, the funny thing is, I used to live in New York, so I have some background in snow. And then I spent 4 years at App State in the mountains where it snowed regularly. And so I'm pretty equipped. Like, I've got gloves and I've got hats and I kind of know how to layer up and everything. Mm-hmm. But Maddie, she's never seen snow in the last 2 years. And with little kids, like you can't buy all that kind of stuff. What age do you buy it at 2 years old? And then she grows out of it in a couple of weeks. So needless to say, we were not prepared for Maddie to have the proper clothing to go play in the snow. So she is wearing my huge gloves. And the poor little thing has little tiny fingers wearing these huge gloves, trying to grab some snow, trying to pack in a snowball. Impossible. So she made the most of it. She was a trooper. She didn't know any different. But we had fun. I tried to get her sledding. A little scared of the sledding. I couldn't get that
that
going.
Probably couldn't grip the sides of it. No chance you could grip the sides of it.
I know. She's freezing because she doesn't even have snow boots or anything. I'm wearing my nice boots that I had from college. I'm all set. But
true, you were hyping those up. I will say my lowest moment in the snow is I didn't have boots on a friend's bachelor party, snowmobiling, So I wore wool socks, wrapped it in plastic grocery bags, and then put on my gray running shoes. Safe to say, atrocious idea. Toes were absolutely frozen. So
Oh,
I'm
you can't have your
sure
toes
I'm sure
cold.
Maddie was probably better off than that.
Hopefully she made it. She stayed out there for a little while. It was good. So, but anyway, I was home yesterday, so I had the TVs on, and was kind of getting the recap of ESPN, what they were talking about. Of course, they love talking about the Cowboys. They want to talk about the Cowboys year round. But what stood out to me was the word blame and blaming became very prominent throughout the morning. And so here were some of the kind of graphics on whether it was Get Up or First Take. One of them was how much blame falls on Mike McCarthy for the final play of the game. Most to blame for Cowboys exit, ? Cowboys blaming the refs too much. And so everybody had their kind of side of things. Was it, especially for the final play, was it Mike McCarthy's fault? Was it Dak's fault? Was it the ref's fault? Oh, the poor ref. They always take the blame. And so is it Jerry Jones's fault for hiring Mike McCarthy, knowing we all knew he didn't know how to handle a game clock, play clock. I mean, time management was not his strong suit. And so there he gets another job, in Dallas. So there is plenty of blame to go around. Analysts want to get to the bottom of, okay, whose fault was it? Why did the team lose? And so we do this in sports all the time. It gives us something to talk about. It's part of the deal.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll pause there, and then we'll talk about kind of the spiritual ramifications of it. Where did you come out as to who to blame with the Cowboys?
Little to no blame on the refs.
Yes.
The Cowboys' performance, I'm not sure I've been more disappointed in a team that I support ever.
Yes, I agree.
Embarrassing and disappointed is the word I go to. 14 penalties, ties a playoff season high.
If you're going to blame anything, blame that.
Yeah, the loss is you have a very talented team and you just go out and shoot yourselves in the foot, self-inflicted wounds. You come out, get punched in the mouth, penalties all over the place, absolutely no discipline. So it's the coaching staff for not coaching discipline, and it's the players for being reckless and not having no discipline. Overall, the refs do not get blamed. I mean, the ref was sprinting to the ball.
Pretty good effort. I got to give it to him.
Very good effort. Very good effort. And then earlier in the game with the same ref on the ball trying to spot it, that's just because the Cowboys messed up, tried to get the Niners to call a timeout with a trick play.
That was a weird play, but it was an awesome fake punt.
Awesome
but then
fake
afterward,
punt.
It was like, wait, what's happening? What are we doing here?
So, yeah, the refs, no. I feel bad for that ref. I hope he doesn't just get crucified with hate mail or things on social media. I think he did a good job. It's not his fault. If it's any blame, it's everything on the Dallas side. Again, disappointing, embarrassing, was not fun to watch.
So I'm more on the coaching blame than I am on Dak.
I agree with that. I agree with that 100%.
I just don't understand. To me, the McCarthy experiment, it just isn't great. When I watch the Cowboys, there is an intangible about them that seems off. And I don't know what it is, because I've watched Dak over the years. I know what he's capable of. Now, the injury, how much did that take away from his game? I don't know. But I know that Dak is capable of being a really good quarterback, and I think good enough to take the Cowboys to the Super Bowl.
Yes.
And I look at the players across the board. It's like there's enough talent there. They can do it. So I point to the head coaching situation. And it seemed like Garrett, same thing. It just missed the intangible. And a coach, I think, can change that culture. And McCarthy hasn't done that. So anyway, that's the baseline for what I want to talk about today in regards to, where do we place the blame? And we love to play the blame game in sports. But the reality is this happens in life as well. We do it so often, we probably don't even think about it, right? Whether it comes to day-to-day kind of casual things, like the reason that we're late, we like to blame traffic, we'll blame somebody else. It's always somebody else's fault, right?
It's our first response. It's yes. Like an innate, it's just the first thing that comes to our head and comes out of our mouths is
We
blame.
point the finger outward versus my bad. And I'll tell you what, I've been trying to teach little Maddie. She's 2 years old. She already knows how to say my bad. I want her
huge.
early on to learn that, because honestly, I'm not always great at it. My gut response is, this person is this, oh yeah, that happened because of this or that, and I'm pointing to something else. And so we do this, and unfortunately, this has actually been going on since the beginning. Adam and Eve. Here's what took place in Genesis, where who told you that you were naked? The Lord God asked. Have you eaten from the tree whose fruit I commanded you not to eat? The man, Adam, replied, it was the woman you gave me who gave me the fruit, and I ate it. Then the Lord God asked the woman, what have you done? And she goes, the serpent deceived me, she replied. That's why I ate it. And so here we go. Since the beginning, it's the blaming. And so what do we do with this? Why is it important to address or evaluate? And I think we have to take a step back and think, okay, what does it really benefit to blame someone else? And I think, I guess what stood out to me in the press conferences too, Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott were not really owning their mistakes. Like, they may have mentioned something here or there, but the overall kind of demeanor was shifting the blame. Well, I don't think it exonerates either one of them because they did that, right?
No.
We still saw it. We saw what happened. We still realized their role in it, but I think we would respect them more. We would appreciate them more if they owned it and said, yeah, that was my bad. I blew it on that play, or I should have done this, should have done that. And we've learned from it and we move on. That's why we do love when coaches actually say, yeah, I take it on me today. I got outcoached today. And we go, okay, great. Yeah, you did. Now we move on. But to me, it's like when we play the blame game, it doesn't really move things forward. It's like, okay, he doesn't really get it. He doesn't understand what he did. And so, yeah. So that.
Which, talking about faith, the exact same thing happens. If we're casting blame, we cannot move forward. I mean, in regards to our sin, if we're casting blame and that prevents us from repenting, good luck moving forward without a repentant heart.
That's right.
So I think I love that you point out, I love that we're addressing, the first thing about blame is, can we acknowledge that is where our heart goes to 99% of the time? That's where our sinful heart wants to go first. So we have to first acknowledge we all struggle with blame. Now, yes. But then it's easy to think, oh, well, they're a blamer. I'm not a blamer. They're a blamer.
That's right.
Which is then blame again.
Yes. And so, we just have to realize that shifting the blame or focus to someone else's mistake doesn't exonerate us from our role and our mistake. And when it comes to sin, especially, yeah, we've got to own it to be able to move forward, like Luke said. And so you look at what Paul reminds us in Romans 14:10-12. This is the Living Bible translation. You have no right to criticize your brother or look down on him. Remember, each of us will stand personally before the judgment seat of God, for it is written, as I live, says the Lord, every knee shall bow to me and every tongue confess to God. Yes, each of us will give an account of himself to God. So the reality is we are all responsible for our own decisions and our role in whatever takes place and anything that we did or didn't do that we had control of, right? So we have to own that reality and then own our role in those situations, because and ultimately we're accountable to God. We'll stand before him one day. And so we could try to point the blame and all that, but God knows the truth. And when God was asking Adam and Eve, he knew the truth. He just was seeing their response. Mm-hmm. So we could try to do that. And these coaches and players that are doing it from a football standpoint, we saw the game. We know the mistakes you made.
True.
So
yes.
So let's own it so we can appreciate, respect, and move forward. And so I think all of us it's more beneficial in the long run to own it, say I blew it, and appreciate accountability, appreciate confession, And then that allows us to seek forgiveness, especially when we've harmed people or done the wrong thing to someone. And so we can be encouraged, what it says in John. But if we confess our sins to God, him, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from all wickedness. So it's an invitation to confess and make that a part of our lives. So that we're not hanging on to sin, because if we're blaming, then we're hanging on to it.
Yes.
And then we're not able to move on from it. So I think that's the key message in all of this is, admit it. I blew it. Yeah, that was my bad.
Yeah. And again, it's so important because when we think who's responsible for our own sin, is it someone else's fault? Is it the situation I was born in? Is it this person doing this to me? No, we're born sinners. And then we continue to condemn ourselves by our own sin. And out of God's grace, he saves us by faith. But we are responsible for our own sin. But again, it's our sinful tendency out of self-preservation. We want to preserve ourselves. Our focus is on ourselves. If I acknowledge my mistakes, we can't, that goes against our desire to preserve ourselves, to make ourselves look better, to puff ourselves up, to try to please man. All sorts of these selfish goals. If we acknowledge our own mistakes and our own sin, that goes against our sinful tendencies. But I will say this, as God has matured me by his grace, he's allowed me to confess more often, confess more vulnerably to closer people. It is unbelievable the freedom that comes with acknowledging our own mistakes.
Yes.
It's almost crazy. It's one of those things where, in regards to our sinful desires, we would never acknowledge our mistakes. We would always cast blame to make ourselves look better. But in regards to living a countercultural lifestyle, according to the wisdom and truth of Scripture, we acknowledge our mistakes first before God and then before man. There's so much freedom in that. Because again, like we've been saying, when you acknowledge, when you repent, when you confess, when you refuse to cast blame, that's the first step in moving forward to then making changes. But if you just blame, there's nothing to change. If it's never your fault, there's no changes to be made, and then you get stuck in a cycle. So if you're listening today and it's really hard to confess, really hard to not blame, just listen. I can testify, I have had moments like that where all I want to do is blame. But as God's helped me confess and repent, the freedom, the growth and maturity, it is so worth it. The intimacy with God, the closer friendships, it's a no-brainer to refuse blaming others.
Amen. I love it. And really, it comes down to humility versus pride, because pride is what's in us. That's what boils up. And so I got to point the finger. I got to blame somebody else because I can't. I'm great. I don't want to make it seem like I'm weak or I made a mistake.
I don't want to risk ruining this reputation I've built up.
That's right. But in humility, we recognize, we are weak. We do screw up. We do say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing, call the wrong play, make the wrong judgment. Let's own it and move on and learn from it. So thankfully, we rest in God's grace. We rest in the forgiveness that he gives us through Jesus. So that's the hope that we have in confession and in accountability and in repentance. So there you go. That's Unpack This today. The devotional went out yesterday. So hopefully you already had a chance to read it and we were able to unpack it a little bit further. If you haven't subscribed to the Unpack This devotional, you can do so on unpackingit.com/subscribe. That written email devotional goes out Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and takes similar topics and relates them to the Bible and our own lives. All right. So I want to make sure we get in the Medishare moment of the week, because this was absolutely fantastic. So for me, it was seeing Ryan Fitzpatrick, the injured quarterback of the Washington football team, in the crowd in Buffalo in the worst conditions, freezing cold, no shirt on, cheering a former team that he played for. You can't make this up. I texted my fantasy buddies. Is he the greatest living human? Have we gotten there yet? I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick is an absolute legend.
Legend.
I mean, the career that he's had, like, put him in the Hall of Fame. Put him in. I'm all in favor of Ryan Fitzpatrick being a member of the Hall of Fame. The wild career, the up and down, and I mean, have we ever seen somebody like a player in the crowd that like doesn't have a brother? Like Stephon Diggs has a brother, so he was there, cheering him on.
Yeah.
In Dallas, and so, but Fitzpatrick is there. I think it was his own sons. He was there watching with them. And then to go viral, and like it's one thing to be in the crowd, but then you like let people know that you're there.
Yeah.
And then you're a true Buffalo fan where you're just nuts and you don't even have clothes on and it's free.
He's not sitting in a suite by himself, I'm here to make myself look good. He was there because he wanted to be there and then embraced the atmosphere of Bills Mafia. I guess he's not the greatest representation of a Bills fan. Yes. Ryan Fitzpatrick. He embodies what it means to be a Buffalo Bill. It's unbelievable.
They should have never let him go. That's devastating.
Yes.
Bring him back. They need to bring him back. That was tremendous. So that is my Medishare moment of the week. Ryan Fitzpatrick. Check out Medishare.com/unpacking to figure out if they are the right healthcare option for your family. And so appreciate Medishare. The game, though, I mean, that game was over really quick. The Patriots had no answers for Buffalo. And my mom was reminding me of this. I actually should be a Bills fan. We lived in Rochester, New York, outside of Buffalo. It's probably a little further down, but actually I have no idea where it is. It's close enough.
I take back everything I've just said.
I know. I don't know. It was close enough. We were in New York. We weren't going to be Giants fans or Jets fans. We were way outside of the city. And so we were there, though, when the Bills were going to Super Bowls. So at that time, we were Bills fans. But honestly, over the years, I've just never been drawn to the Buffalo Bills. When they had Doug Flutie, I liked him. And of course, Fitzpatrick is always great. But I haven't, Josh Allen just hasn't done it for me. But I am on board in regards to this team is absolutely a Super Bowl contender. What Josh Allen is doing, there's no denying it. He's unbelievable. People keep talking about him being the most talented, his ability to run at that size, to have that cannon of an arm. Brian Daboll's getting all these head coaching opportunities, what he's done with that offense. Even Devin Singletary has finally emerged as a reliable running back. He's not
finally
reliable. He's been, as I say, consistent, maybe not reliable, consistent. The last, I'd say 5 weeks anyway, he's done very well. So good for the Bills. And now they get to play the Chiefs. That's the reality of this year's playoffs. There's no good matchups. You're not rooting for anybody to win. I mean, to now have to go up against the Chiefs, this is going to be a wild matchup. And the Chiefs looked great too. That was an impressive game. I mean, they were pulling out all the stops. Travis Kelce threw a touchdown. Yeah. That was a statement game for them. If anyone was questioning, are they back? Yes, they're back. But I think, when we talk next Monday, unless we get snowed in again, snow's coming to Charlotte again, so we might get snowed in again. But if we talk next Monday, we're going to be talking about the Chiefs or the Bills going home. But I don't think we'll talk about either team like, oh, well, they need to make all these drastic changes. No, those two teams could play for the Super Bowl. They could be the two best teams left. I mean, that's kind of where we're at.
It's just one of those things. One of them has to lose. You just have to charge it to the game. It's just a matter of there are some really good teams in the playoffs right now. But yeah, I think for you, one, you're living in Charlotte. So, I mean, it's Panthers Nation. But also, the last, 15 years, the Bills have been buried in that division.
8-8 at best.
They've almost gone, to me, it's hard. It was hard to even know that they were there because they weren't like the Jags. They weren't like the Browns. The Browns, their identity were terrible. Living in Texas, I didn't even think about the Bills. But hey, you've got a team to root for in the playoffs. And you have precedent because you technically have been a fan of them. So
yeah, I know. It's interesting.
I think that's the marquee game this next week is Bills Chiefs. I mean, the last year's AFC Championship game. It's like, I don't know. Josh Allen is so phenomenal. All the haters that he's overcome, he's not accurate. I remember he was drafted, and there were so many articles from NFL insiders that went to his high school, his JV game passing completion rate. I'm like, are you kidding me? Can this guy get a break? You're going to his JV and JV games completion percentage. And now he is so dynamic with a great defense, You have at minimum, a really good quarterback and likely could be seen as elite and a great defense. That is the recipe to win a Super Bowl. So I agree with you. If they lose to Kansas City, I really hope that the narrative is they need to make changes. Like the narrative should be they just lost to the Chiefs, who have gone to the Super Bowl 3 years in a row. So, or gone to the conference championship 3 years in a row, 2 times in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And that's it. And let it just be that.
I know. And I would say the same thing with the Rams Bucks, maybe to a little lesser degree. Both of these teams are like all in for right now. Whereas the Bills, I mean, they're in for right now, but like to me, they're built like Allen's just getting going. He's not probably even in his prime yet. So, whereas Stafford's at the end, Brady, we don't know when. I mean, he might be 65 before he's done, but it's like, they're all in, especially salary cap wise. So, yeah, I mean, it's Super Bowl or bust for both of those teams. You could say, oh, yeah, we'll both run it back next year, but it's going to be really hard for them to do that just with the roster construction. Yes. But one of them is next Monday, we're going to be talking about, didn't work out for the Rams. They spent all the money to get Von Miller and Jalen Ramsey and whoever else, OBJ and Stafford and all that, and they're at home.
Well, let me ask you this. Which team do you think has the most pressure to win? I would say the Rams. I think Tampa is almost playing with house money. Absolutely. Because they won last year. There is no pressure on them. Just go out and play. They're almost playing with house money, which is crazy. I think the Rams have the most pressure because they have no assets in the future. They're all in on winning now.
They're going to be really bad for a while.
Yeah, Stafford
they've mortgaged their future in a big way.
2-3 years, it's going to look bad.
Oof,
but if you win a Super Bowl, it's worth it.
It's worth it. That's right. Now, I was talking to my brother about this. The fact that Aaron Rodgers, as good as he is, an unbelievable all-timer, to only have one Super Bowl win doesn't seem to add up. Like, it doesn't make sense. You're like, wait, what? Really? So to me, there's still a lot of pressure on the Packers. And what's crazy is the 49ers know how to beat the Packers. This is quite the rivalry between Kyle Shanahan and Matt LaFleur. And the whole, we don't know what to believe in the offseason, what was true, what was not true in regards to how close of a deal was there with Rodgers actually going to San Francisco. Was San Francisco actually reaching out to Aaron Rodgers? I was reading something that maybe that Shanahan and LaFleur, which used to be a mentor relationship, is a little bit strained even because of that. So there's a lot going into that game. San Francisco, I don't think a lot of people were expecting them to even be in this position, especially midway through the season where they were really struggling.
They're dangerous.
And so now they knock out your team, the Cowboys. And, if Garoppolo, if he hangs on, doesn't throw a ton of interceptions, they're in good shape. He threw how many? Just one against Dallas. Did he throw one? He threw one. Yeah, at the end. It was a key one. Yeah. Was that the only one during the day? Yeah.
Yes, just one.
One. Okay. So the key.
Terrible.
Yeah, I mean he can't necessarily overcome most quarterbacks in the playoffs can't anyway, but
their model
is run the ball.
Their model is get a lead and then ground and pound. That's what they did. The Cowboys' recipe for disaster was get down early, and that's exactly what happened. But the Niners, I heard a stat. They're top 10 in offense and defense. There's only 6 teams this year who can claim that. I'm saying they've got some dangerous playmakers. Kittle, Deebo Samuel. They've got some weapons on defense. You have to take this game. Obviously, they're going to take it seriously to the playoffs, but this is not a snoozer for the Packers.
No, and I don't like the buys if I'm a team with momentum and all that. The 49ers are coming in. I mean, that was a crazy finish to that Dallas game, the energy. So it's either kind of a letdown. The 49ers gave all they had to pull that out, or it's like, man, we're rolling. Like, let's go. We're playing with house money too. Even though I actually think the 49ers should have a little bit more pressure on themselves. They were in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago.
I agree. I don't think we should let them off the hook. I don't think we should let them off the hook that easy.
Exactly. They're different from the Bengals, who maybe they're a year early.
Exactly.
Than what you would expect.
Bengals, that's the most house money. They're a year ahead of schedule.
Yes.
They can play
They're
so
lucky.
freely. Oh, so the
I don't see them
Bengals, talk about a
winning.
dangerous matchup if you're playing Cincinnati.
Well, so Tennessee should, gosh, they should win. They found ways to win all season long. So
Yeah.
I expect them to win that one. I would say the upset I feel most, gosh, it's like probably the Rams, but I'm not picking against the Bucs until they lose. Like, they're my super. So if anybody asks me who's winning the Super Bowl, well, it's the Bucs until they lose. Which I definitely think they're capable of it, but because they are a little banged up. But
I'm
man,
still all in on Green Bay just because I think it's got to be the year. We talked about it before. This third straight 13-win season, Aaron Rodgers, good defense. It's got to be. If it's not this year, Aaron Rodgers is not winning a Super Bowl in Green Bay. I just don't know how. It's got to be the year.
Yeah. I know what will be different next year. It's like,
yeah,
unless Brady finally leaves, like maybe that's his.
Maybe.
I mean, I guess I am rooting. Well, either way, if it's the Rams Packers or the Bucs Packers, that's going to be great. And if the 49ers somehow pull the upset, any of the matchups the rest of the way, they're all good. Any way you cut it, any Super Bowl matchup, it's going to be great.
There is. We are just so blessed as NFL fans this year, and no matter what happens, we are going to have fantastic matchups. So good.
Speaking of Jimmy G, I still don't understand what they did with Trey Lance. Like, why did they draft him? Because here's the thing: if you traded up for that pick, why not try to win now and get somebody that can contribute and help you?
I know.
I just don't. I can't. I'm trying to wrap my mind around it. I was thinking about that during the Dallas game. It's like, well, they could have used that pick or not traded or or put him in or what are we doing here?
Like, on paper, you think, next year's got to be Trey Lance. But even now, especially if they go beat Green Bay, how do you not bring Jimmy G back?
Yeah. That's what's so confusing about it. So
very confusing.
That's one of my storylines I'm just keeping an eye on for sure. All right, we're running out of time. Let's bring on Henry, bring him back and do a little tap drill, and we'll cover some of the other topics we haven't had a chance to get to. Man, we didn't really talk head coaching today, which I've wanted to get into it more, but we've had so much going on with games and action out on the field. So the coaching carousel, very intriguing. So hopefully by next week's show, we'll probably have a little bit more clarity. It's almost like we're waiting for that first head coach hiring, and that'll be a domino effect a little bit. But I'll just say this real quick. To me, Doug Peterson and Brian Flores, both of those guys should be the most coveted, which I think they are. But if I'm Doug Peterson, I'm going to Denver or Minnesota because they're not that far away from making it, from turning the corner. And so that would be my big
Just to piggyback off that real quick, Minnesota has got to be the most attractive spot because that division is so weak, especially with Aaron Rodgers in the tail end. Like, going to Denver, you have to play Herbert and Mahomes. Really difficult.
That's a good point.
Minnesota, with Detroit and Chicago, you're at minimum finishing second in that division. So I don't know.
Well,
that division is very attractive.
I would like to see Brian Flores go to Chicago. That seems to be the fit in my mind. But yeah, we'll talk more about that next week. All right, Henry, you take it away, man. Let's do a little tap drill, some other random questions you got for us today.
All right, boys. The Manning cast came back for Super Wildcard Weekend, and of all the guests that he had none other than Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson on the Manning cast. So, boys, what is your favorite Rock movie?
Ooh, Luke,
I know mine.
You do? Okay, what's yours?
Oh, The Game Plan. So good. The Game Plan. I mean, the amount of times I have watched that movie.
The Game Plan.
So did you hear him say he filmed that movie 4 weeks after a torn Achilles surgery? Before the movie, he was a rollout pass, jumped, landed, tore his Achilles, got surgery, filmed that movie after Achilles surgery, which I thought was fascinating.
I don't think I've seen that whole movie.
Oh, you've got to. Oh, yeah, it's fantastic. I don't think I have. Such a good movie.
The Rock's awesome. Great movies. I think my favorite is Walking Tall, where he he stands up for his town, stands up for what's right, and does it with a 4x4 piece of wood. So that's tremendous. Yeah, that's gosh, I've seen that movie a lot. That's my go-to. If that's on TV, it's hard to stop. It's hard to stop watching. I stop right there.
Yeah.
Stop right there.
Well, as much as I like all his big hits like Fast and the Furious and Hobbs and Shaw, the one that I have to, and I agree with Shannon if you see it in the chat, my favorite one has to be Jumanji.
I like Jumanji. I've only seen the first one. I thought it was a good movie. Yeah, I enjoyed it. That was a good one.
The Rock is pretty much good in everything. All right, so the Manning cast. We've got a whole season of the Manning cast. You can answer this either one of two ways. What was your best moment of the Manning cast? Or should we bring back the Manning cast on a regular basis?
Well, you know how much I loved it. It was must-watch TV, and I thought those guys did such a great job. I loved the interviews. I will say this, though. It's almost like I'd rather them just do an interview show because it almost did take away from the game a little bit. But thankfully, they were there for us during some bad games. But like in tight games or games that maybe really mattered, I still understand the distraction of it because they're so entertaining. I can't take my eyes off of them. So, it seems like Peyton Manning's in the mix to own an NFL franchise, specifically the Broncos. And so that'll change things. But their ability to get A-list stars week in, week out, quarter in, quarter out was strong. I actually liked Roger Goodell a lot. I know that'll seem funny or random, but I thought that conversation was actually pretty good. So he jumped out to me.
So I'll say this. One, I love the Manning cast. I had to adjust, though, because I'm so used to the normal broadcast with commentary after each play-by-play guy, color commentary guy. So I wasn't used to watching the game and then also paying attention to the commentary from the Manning brothers as well as their interviews. But last night, I was exclusively on the Manning cast. I didn't even watch the main broadcast. So I love it. I'm on the other side, Bryce. I love when they get nerdy and talk about film and then they just talk to each other. Like the pit sweat bit, Eli always making fun of Peyton's pit sweat. Hilarious. I love that. I think my only complaint is that it's just inevitable potential cringe moments, awkward moments by being on video calls where they're cutting each other off, or The Rock will go on a 5-minute monologue and then Peyton will respond with, "Yeah, Eli, that cover 2 they're playing." And The Rock's like, "Can you respond to me?"
No, you're right. That kills me. Come on, acknowledge what they say.
Yes.
You got to acknowledge it.
You got to acknowledge.
The third down draw play.
Brutal. And then The Rock kept saying, "Yeah, I got a question for you guys." And then they went to commercial. And then 10 minutes later, The Rock finally answers a question. Again, there was a specific moment where he has a great response, and then Peyton doesn't even acknowledge. He just goes into a cover 2 discussion. I'm like, come on.
Figure it out, too, where no commercials. Don't give those guys.
Come on.
Now let Peyton just have it sponsored by Nationwide and all his other sponsors.
Yes.
They got the one sponsor. They do the one commercial where they literally have every brand in the commercial. The one with Jerome Bettis. You see that one?
Yes.
I don't know how they did that. They got like every single brand out there. There must be under some umbrella.
Let's get at least like a commercial-free fourth quarter or something. Golf broadcasts do that. But them trying to get in and out of commercials on video conferencing, the interviews, it's just too choppy. It's too choppy.
We got The Rock sitting here with the Tyrannosaurus Rex head.
Yeah.
Don't go to break.
Yeah, what are we doing?
Every minute of
kind of burying the lead with the Dinosaur Rex head. Did you think he actually paid $31 million for that thing?
No way. No. I saw something later on that there's a replica of that. And that has to be the case. Yeah. You're not spending $31 million on that thing. He's made good money, but he hasn't made that much money.
My God, man.
Throw away on third. Is that even an investment?
Ooh.
A fossil? I mean, I guess a little.
All right, boys. One more tap, Jill. I don't know if you noticed, but Donna Kelsey, and if you're not too familiar with Donna Kelsey, she is the mom of both Jason Kelsey of the Eagles and Travis Kelsey of the Kansas City Chiefs. She actually went to both games in the same day and managed to actually even ask Travis Kelce the first question in the press conference. So
Love it.
what do you think of mom going to both games?
Impressive. It's amazing to me. I always go back to anytime there are two professional athletes from the same family is remarkable, whether it's a dad and son or whatever, two brothers, any combination of that, absolutely remarkable. And so for a mom, yeah, that's got to be cool. But she talked about the highs and lows of a day. You watch your Eagles get blown out, then you watch your other son with Jason, and then you see your son Travis light it up, throw his first career touchdown. So that was all special. It was all cool. I'm a huge Travis Kelce fan. So that was great.
You got to think Jason Kelce is getting the last slice of pie at family get-togethers by playing on the Eagles right now. Like, Travis, you're having a lot of success. Jason, yeah, you get the extra slice of mom's pie at this Thanksgiving.
Yeah, let your brother live for a little bit. Let him have a little bit of pie. Let him have a little bit of extra pie, mind you, because your team's not going to the playoffs. Because I'm waiting to see Travis get his, and Travis will probably be the favorite son going forward again. Probably.
I agree with you though, Bryce. When there's multiple family members in a professional sport, it's just remarkable. Like what TJ Watt's doing. We thought JJ Watt was good, and now TJ Watt ties the NFL record for sacks in a season. How is that possible? It is actually impossible to be a pro athlete, and you have multiple siblings playing in a professional league together. It's unbelievable. It needs to be discussed more on how unlikely it is. It's crazy.
Yeah. And then to have Peyton and Eli, we could see them every week. Well, 10 games a year. So kind of thing. And then for their dad to play. Well, Henry, great job. And guys, thanks for adjusting to Tuesday's show. We were off yesterday because of the snow. And guess what? It's really cold here in Charlotte. We got really cold weather. Guess what? My office, 150 degrees. I'm sweating. I'm wearing this quarter zip, a full-on sweat. I mean, it's unbelievably hot here. It's like you can't win. You can't win.
Well, let's first acknowledge that you probably like that. When I interned in Charlotte, I have never been in a hotter environment in my entire life. I walked in, I'm thinking, wow, AC broken first day? Really good impression here. Bryce goes, yeah, I keep it at 78 pretty much all the time. 78? Oh!
Yeah, that's a nice. Well, it's hot out. So here's the thing. If you dress cold, like you wear shorts and short sleeve in the summer, then you go inside in the freezing cold air conditioner and you're cold. And so for me today, I was out and about a little bit. And so I was out in the cold. So I have a sweater vest on or sweater quarter zip. Well, then I come in the office, you got the heat blaring.
Oh,
so it's the craziest thing. You can't figure it out with the air and what to wear. And you're changing clothes all day long. So
our apartment, we have a flat rate for like AC, for utilities. Oh, we keep the house chilly. 66, 67 at night. Oh, it's fantastic.
Oh, man. Well, good for you. All right. So anyway, I'm going to go cool down a little bit, go put my head in the snow. Have a great day, Luke and Henry. Great job. Thanks everybody listening today. It was a ton of fun. I'm Bryce. I'm a sports fan who follows Jesus. I believe in the good news that he died on the cross for my sin. He was resurrected, and through faith, I've been saved by his grace. I hope that is true for you as well. And I hope you'll join me as we live life as sports fans who follow Jesus together. Have a great rest of your day. Let's not blame people. Let's take ownership. Let's point the finger toward us. Repent, confess, change, and rest in God's grace and forgiveness. This has been the Unpacking It Live podcast presented by Medishare. Lord willing, we'll be back next Monday, 2 Eastern, here on the Unpacking It Live podcast presented by Medishare.